Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. I know we're in some different time zones, so for those that have already had lunch, welcome back. And maybe for those that have lunch coming up after this, I hope we can keep your interest before you take away for some food. So our session here is going to be split into two parts. We're going to be talking about some educational programs to enhance social prescribing for older adults, because that's what our two projects have primarily focused on. So my name is Beth Mansell. I'm the Provincial Social Prescribing Project Manager with Healthy Aging Alberta. I'm located in Edmonton. And then the second half of this presentation will be from Sheila and Cindy Maxfield there. And they are with the Gateway Centre of Excellence in Rural Health. And they're going to talk a little bit about their connectedness coaching program and the rollout of that in Ontario. So for my portion of the presentation, I wanted to just provide a little bit of context in terms of what social prescribing looks like here in Alberta, because that'll give some more context for why we've developed our link worker curriculum and how that's rolling out here in Alberta. So in our model here in Alberta, it looks quite similar to what's happening in other provinces as well. We've got healthcare providers from primary care, home care, which is like home care case managers, so they might be registered nurses, and then also hospital discharge, so those transition coordinators. They're the individuals that are making that social prescription. That social prescription goes to a link worker. The link worker is employed within a community-based senior serving organization. So they're not employed within the healthcare system. It's those community-based organizations that house that link worker. That link worker receives the prescription and then connects with the client, conducts a more holistic assessment with them based on the social determinants of health. They co-create goals in their care plan with the older adult. They engage in regular support and follow up with the older adult, and then they also provide progress updates back to the healthcare providers. And so that link worker is responsible for connecting the older adult with the range of community supports that exist, that are provided by different community-based organizations. So that could be anything from meal preparation or food security support, could be some more intensive case management that might be provided by a social worker. It could be a range of in-home supports like home and yard maintenance, snow removal, connecting people to financial benefits that they're eligible for, connecting older adults with assisted transportation, could be some service navigation that's required, and then also all of those social and recreational programs that will really help to address some of that social isolation there. So that's a little bit of an overview of our model and how things look in Alberta currently for our social prescribing for older adults program. And so why Healthy Aging Alberta? So our role in the community, we're a provincial initiative, and our work is focused on building capacity of those community-based organizations across the province. So support a range of organizations from senior centers to family and community support services, organizations like Meals on Wheels. So there's really a diverse range of organizations that Healthy Aging Alberta is hoping to really be able to build capacity for and establish a formal sector for. And so our role in social prescribing is to really articulate the value of all of those community-based programs and services that are being provided and have it be a recognized approach by other systems like healthcare and housing. And so right now we are implementing social prescribing in 10 different communities. And as I was mentioning, our project is focused on older adults age 55 plus. And so across those 10 different communities, we have about 20 link workers right now. So still a pretty small workforce. And those link workers are non-credentialed professionals, and they're employed by the community-based senior serving organizations. And so when these organizations are recruiting for the link workers, they're really recruiting for people that are going to have that relational approach, be able to connect well with seniors. It's really about finding the right fit for the role, as opposed to someone with a whole bunch of previous certificates or programs that they've taken. And so that's why the link worker curriculum is so important for our work, because it's on the job training that the link workers would complete once they've been hired into that role. So our purpose earlier this year, as we were developing this linked worker curriculum, was to have something that could be taken on the job by the link workers, self-directed, and to have it be accessible across the entire province. And our other goal was to create some common terminology and training standardization for this approach to service delivery, considering that social prescribing is still a relatively new way of working here in Alberta. And so how did we do this? Well, we did a jurisdictional scan of the link worker role in other provinces and other countries, and we looked at some of the training materials that were available in those other jurisdictions as well. We then conducted engagement with key stakeholders from across the province. So some of those were frontline link workers already doing the work. Some people were program managers that were supervising the link worker role. And then we had some subject matter experts as well that just had a really good understanding of social prescribing from other provinces as well. And what we really wanted to do was establish some of those core competencies that are required for that link worker role, and then validate those with the key stakeholders. So we had about 20 individuals from 15 different organizations provide some feedback to understand those competencies and the training priorities for link workers. And what we landed on for some success criteria for the project was ensuring that the community was aware of social prescribing in the link worker role, needed to be caregiver-centered. The training had to reflect a provincial perspective as well. It's a very diverse province here in Alberta. There's a lot of differences between urban and rural settings. We wanted the curriculum to be action-oriented and user-friendly. We wanted it to align with national work that's happening. So some of the work that the Canadian Institute for Social Prescribing is coordinating, we wanted to make sure that our curriculum was in alignment with their objectives and their goals. We wanted to define a clear scope of practice for the link worker role to really help build on some of that role clarity work between social work and the link worker. We wanted to make sure that it was accessible to frontline workers and their supervisors, have it be something that was tangible and creditable. And then, as I was saying before, meeting the needs of the community, including some of those rural settings as well. So what we were asking in that initial stage of engagement was, what are the biggest challenges that link workers might face on the job? And then what would be the most exciting things to see in a link worker training curriculum? And so what we heard from those stakeholders was that would be really important, or I guess it would be challenging for link workers to define boundaries and scope of their role, challenging to build awareness and trust with healthcare providers. One of the challenges would be supporting those with complex needs, being able to provide culturally competent care, being able to manage workloads and prevent burnout, maintaining knowledge of community resources. I think this is a really big one that we hear commonly across community sectors, is that the range of programs and activities that exist in community is always changing. And then being able to effectively connect with clients. And in terms of what people were most excited to see in a curriculum, person-centered care practices, being able to foster partnerships with caregivers, having some elements of self-care practices for the link worker role, having the training be adaptable for individuals who are new to Canada or maybe have English as a second language, being a repository for tools that are commonly used in the sector, so potentially assessment tools or other types of tools that could be used by frontline workers. And then also having a good understanding of the supports that are available for seniors in the community in terms of some of the benefits that might exist or different processes and things that need to be navigated. So this is what we landed on for kind of 5 areas of key competencies that would need to be reflected in the training curriculum. So the first one, making connections on the left there. This is really about client relationship building, being able to build compassionate, non-judgmental relationships with clients in order to gain their trust and work collaboratively. Also includes competencies around making referrals, so being able to refer to appropriate community resources or services based on the strengths, needs, and interests of the client. And also involves community relationship building. So having that link worker be able to provide geographically relevant referrals to patients and clients by having a deep knowledge of the available local resources and building the connections with the other community-based organizations to make sure that you have good knowledge and you're kind of up to date on maybe if programs have wait lists or if programs are limited in terms of their timings and things like that. So the second core competency was around listening. And so this included being able to assess client needs, listening to what matters, their client needs, interests, and priorities, and really understanding their motivation or change readiness to determine what types of supports and services would be required. And the other piece in this area is that ongoing follow-up. So being able to listen to clients on an ongoing basis to monitor their progress and ensure that referrals are meeting their needs and interests. The self-reflection area included reflecting on personal bias. So being a link worker requires a willingness to reflect on their own biases in order to develop respectful and supportive relationships with clients. And then also reflecting on their own practice. So through the nature of the work and the support being provided, I think we all know that frontline staff are vulnerable to stress and empathy fatigue. And so practicing regular kind of self-care in this area is essential to supporting that link worker role. The fourth area here around advocating, this included competencies around communicating the value of the work. And so being able to really articulate the value of the link worker role in the broader ecosystem with healthcare partners and other community-based partners. Advocating for clients as well. So in some cases, clients need that link worker to play an advocacy role in terms of connecting them to specific resources and addressing some of the barriers that exist for clients to accessing specific programs and services. And then advocating for themselves as well. So for that link worker to know their boundaries and know when to reach out to help from a supervisor or the broader community. And then the final area in terms of navigating, that included competencies around service navigation, and then also care planning. So being able to collaborate with clients to map a path to addressing their needs, building their skills, and pursuing interests. So at the beginning of the curriculum, we have, a pre-curriculum survey that assesses knowledge and understanding of those different kind of core competencies. And so this gets asked to everyone that registers for the curriculum. We'll touch on this a little bit at the end, but I just wanted to give a sense of the competencies that are assessed at the beginning of the training. And then we move into each of the modules. So there's 5 modules. The first module focuses on the link worker function and the ecosystem. It really gives people a good orientation to that link worker role's place in terms of that broader health and community ecosystem, the potential ethical standards and code of conduct that exists for that link worker role that will help them to guide their work. Module 2 goes over equity-based approaches to care. And so this gives link workers a really good understanding of the social determinants of health and how they impact a client's health outcomes and how they impact care access as well. Also goes over how to build capacity with supporting clients with diverse lived experiences and barriers that might make things more challenging or complex. It goes over culturally connected approaches to care, including cultural safety and cultural humility. And then it also talks about how to build competencies around self-reflection on our own biases that we all have. Module 3 dives deeper into more of the practical skills for supporting clients. And so this includes pieces around how to conduct client-led care planning, goes over the basics of motivational interviewing and strengths-based approaches that ground behavior change recommendations, goes over collaborative approaches to care planning with caregivers, family members, and healthcare providers, and then talks about how to make referrals and warm connections to external resources. Module 4 is around building community connections to support clients. And so this module really goes into some of those key ingredients for relationship building across different stakeholders within the senior sector and within the healthcare system as well. Strategies for building knowledge and relationships with social services agencies, and then building relationships with other members of the older adults kind of ecosystem and their care team as well. And then module 5, the final module here, is around supporting the link worker's own well-being. And so it talks about some of the factors that can contribute to stress and burnout, how to understand and recognize empathy fatigue, and how to kind of address that, how to set professional boundaries, and then how to create an actionable self-care plan. And so each of the modules have knowledge tests within them to make sure that that learners are actually picking up the information that they're reading through and going through. And so there's elements of knowledge tests throughout each of the modules. And so the questions have to be answered correctly in order to move on to the next stage. And then there's also elements of self-reflection. And so these aren't, they're not graded in any way, but they're just spaces for learners to kind of reflect on what they're learning. We don't read the replies or anything that they write in here, but it's just a space for them to really kind of reflect on some of the pieces that they're learning. So this is the post survey that we ask once the 5 modules are completed. And so there's 3 questions around the learning objectives being clear and well communicated, a question around if the topics covered were relevant, and then also a question around the content being delivered in an organized manner that's easy to follow. And then we also re-ask the same questions that we ask at the beginning of the training. And so goes over those competencies in each of the modules. So the key link worker functions and whether someone feels like their knowledge and understanding in that area has improved, the equity-based approaches to care, practical skills for serving clients, building community connections to support clients, and then supporting their own well-being. And so we officially launched the curriculum in July of this year. And so we have some very, very early results that we're seeing. I know at the beginning I mentioned we only have around 20 link workers right now throughout Alberta, but we have opened up the training curriculum to other frontline workers and supervisors that are just interested in taking this and learning more. And so since then, we've had 75 people that have indicated that they would like to sign up and take the training. Out of those 75 people, 39 have actually started the course. So we need to do some work to remind people, like, just because you're interested and you signed up, like you actually have to click start and start taking the online modules. And then out of those 39, 25 have fully completed the course right now. And so the 5 modules, they're intended to be taken sequentially. So the first 3 modules we indicate would be best taken as part of a link worker's onboarding plan. The 4th module we suggest is taken about 2 to 4 weeks after someone starts their role. And then that last module, module 5, which is more around the self-care, that's really something that's going to be more beneficial as link workers are really digging into their role and they've started meeting with clients and other members of the team. And so we suggest that one's taken about 60 days after someone begins their link worker role. So that kind of explains some of that drop off there and why we've only had 25 fully completed since July. And so we have some preliminary results that we've got from those surveys. So those 25 people that have completed the full training, there's 88% that agreed that the topics covered were relevant and useful to their role. And the same amount indicated that they were confident or very confident in their ability to apply the knowledge and skills from this training in their practice. And then in terms of some of those competency improvements, just highlighted a few of these here that we've pulled from those surveys as well. And so people's understanding of the link worker functions, the ethical standards, and their role in the broader ecosystem. Before they took the training, people ranked that at about 28%. And then once they've completed all 5 modules, that increased to 76%. And the same understanding of equity-based approaches to care, that went from 44% to 80%. And then understanding of how to build community connections to support clients gone from 36% to 64%. So we're seeing good increases there in terms of how people are rating their competencies of these different areas, like pre and post taking the training. I think we're really interested to see what that will look like as we get a broader amount of people taking the training as well. And I just wanted to touch a little bit on our next steps here in Alberta in terms of our link worker curriculum. And so we're hoping that we can engage in some semi-annual feedback and refinement to make sure that we're really reflecting the needs of the community and what they feel like they need included in this type of training. And so probably early in the new year, we'll do some more feedback and refinement to the modules. We're also making sure that this work is connected into other national training initiatives through the Canadian Institute for Social Prescribing as well. I know there's a lot of work happening right now in Ontario with a social prescribing curriculum. And so just trying to make sure that we're kind of tying into those pieces. And if there's other parts of training around social prescribing that we can incorporate into our curriculum, we're happy to do that. We're also happy to share our link worker curriculum with other provinces as well, maybe potentially with some small adaptations, because I know that link worker role looks a little bit different everywhere else. And then the final thing that we're doing is exploring in the future potential of making this some sort of micro-credential that would have kind of an institutional backing attached to it. I think we started really, really small in terms of what this training looks like. But I think as we continue to grow social prescribing in Alberta and we continue to grow that link worker workforce, there might be a need to have some sort of, I guess, academic kind of institutional backing behind the training. And I think this would really help to increase buy-in from healthcare providers and other stakeholders in really recognizing the value of this role. Would also potentially help to facilitate more referrals into social prescribing programs as we continue to grow, and then hopefully make a case for future investment and funding. As well as we continue to grow across the province, more of that standardization will help with things like recruitment and managing the role. It will start to become more of a well-known role. It will help with consistent service delivery across organizations as well. And then I think looking even more broadly, that micro-credential would have the potential to advance social prescribing visibility across the community. We'd be able to better recognize and celebrate the work of link workers and other social prescribing practitioners. And it could potentially act as a precedent for other regions as well. So that's my part of the presentation. I will pass it over to Sheila. I'll stop sharing my screen here, and we're going to do a round of questions all at the end.
Hello, everyone. I hope my slides are coming up for your viewing. My name is Sheila Schuline, and I'm the project lead for a program we're going to tell you a little bit about called Connectedness Coaching. And I'm really delighted to have my colleague, Cindy Maxfield from the Grand Bendon Area Community Health Center here to tell a little bit about her experience with the Connectedness Coaching program. It's kind of like the chicken and the egg. Beth's program is at the level where the link workers are already engaged and hired, and the training is specifically to engage them in that role. Connectedness Coaching started back was launched in 2020. And before that, it was a community volunteer education program that was delivered in person and then turned into a virtual program. And when we turned it to a virtual program, the funder asked that we really look at creating, resilience in communities. And that just seemed to align very nicely with the social prescribing movement. So we've had some really great forays in bringing it into the social prescribing space. And so I think I'd like to start with a little bit of context. I don't have to tell anyone here about the need for connection that we're seeing, on an increase in our communities and across the country. But the piece that might not always join up with that or be recognized alongside is that it's an opportunity to build resilience, both in individuals and communities. And that's kind of one of our underlying goals, is that resilience building piece. I would say that that's really our skill development focus. So if you want to think about it, and Cindy will share more about, when they offered the training and where they were at in the process, but this is kind of a preemptive way to create readiness for social prescribing in communities. I'm going to start with this great, maybe I'm not. I'm going to start with this great quote about social prescribing that to us is a mission statement. It really aligns well, with what we're doing. It's not about rescuing people. It isn't about saving people. It's about building skills and resilience within people to save and help themselves. And it's about building a community so that it's ultimately that community looking out for another rather than service providers providing services. And we stole that from Social Prescribing for Equality and Resilience out of Bristol in the UK. So when we look at that, this empowerment quote, I think, it definitely leads into, so what is our definition of resilience and why are we tying it into social prescribing? And I think really to tell you, this is kind of the theory-based or the evidence-based work that we've been incorporating into our connectedness coaching program. And it comes from Dr. Malcolm Unger at Dalhousie University. It's kind of taken away from what you might consider a more old school definition of resilience, where it's like pull up your bootstraps and just power through it and make it happen. And it's all about you. If you're not able to lose those 10 pounds or break through into this new community, you just have to find a way. Well, this is really kind of setting that on its head and saying, wait a minute here, we're actually needing dynamic ways of working within our environment and having, support negotiating for those resources so that they can get what they want and needs that make sense to me. He put it in a very well first person approach. But when you think about that, is that not kind of the a big piece of the role of the link worker, right? So link workers, resilience, connectedness coaching, the coaching model. You'll see some of the overlap with what Beth has been doing with their training. So ours would start probably a little earlier in community, but there is some really great overlay. And this might be one of them. So I've already alluded to it. I will tell you a little bit about the program that we use this for in terms of our first level training, but it's been used in lots of different ways, and I'll share that as well. But this is a webinar workshop series. Our connectedness coaching program in its entirety is 8 hours, a webinar, and then a huge deeper dive into a toolkit for folks to customize that education for whatever their specific interest is. So as you see this, we've started it as our own precursor education for a role in a program called Lonely No More, but it has been used by other community agencies to help train or create readiness for engagement in their volunteer roles. So I won't go through my entire list. I know you're going to get these slides at a later date, but these are our competencies, which you'll see if you look. Active listening is an overlap, making and maintaining connections. Strength-based approach is definitely in there. We actually work a little bit on having a better understanding of what we mean by resiliency. We talk about holding space and maintaining healthy boundaries. We also talk about self-care as well. So some definite overlap. This is the program for which connectedness coaching is the first level training. So you're going to see some overlap with what we do in this program as kind of a social prescribing initiative in amongst itself. Now, this started in 2018. This started quite a while back. Actually, 2016, I was out, starting the legwork for this. But it's for rural older adults. North Perth and Huron County, Grey and Bruce are the counties we serve. So this Jill, our person that we'll talk about for a moment, wants to connect with others in her community. And so this is one of our volunteer recruitment posters. So we tell our volunteers what they're doing, what their role looks like is to create new connections, help build that person's social capital or the group's social capital, and navigate community resources and enhance Jill's resilience. And kind of how we do that, it's this very busy slide, but it kind of gives you a walkthrough. So if we start with how maybe Jill heard about it, some of the initiatives we've done in community, we put posters into books that were delivered. So say that Jill heard about us that way or anyway. She might have needed some assistance from a family member or a caregiver to make the call. She made the call to our office and heard about what we do, the Lonely No More program, and decided she wanted to join one of our elder circles. And this is based on a true story. So this really, for the most part, has happened. Names have been changed. So our elder circles meet once a week. They are not agendized. They're whatever the older adults want to talk about together. And it really does build their social capital. It's phenomenal what we've seen in terms of that. So, the group is talking this time about recent losses and grief. And when we hear about that, and if they come to us, it's really a co-development model where we say, wow, if you want someone, we'll see what we can do about bringing in someone to speak to you about grief. So off we go. And we shared about North Perth's grief recovery program and had a speaker come in and be able to, talk to the group. And then that last circle is, you're starting to see the confidence build and through the engagements that have happened previously, Jill has gone into another facet of what we deliver in Lonely No More, which is a virtual music group. Came out of the pandemic when many of our members were not able to play their music and asked us if we could figure something out. So we have a virtual music group. Jill is not a musician, but she's now taken on the role of hostess at that. So that gives her yet another outing to get into community. So it's a pretty innovative social prescribing initiative, or so we feel it is. And so again, back to connectedness coaching, what I'm here to tell you about today is the precursor education, so that we are preparing our volunteers and volunteers for other community agencies to be ready to do that kind of work. There's 21 reflections, and we have journaling moments throughout it. It's pretty interactive. We do lots of breakouts for opportunity to collaborate and do some peer learning. What you're seeing on that beautiful mapping is one of our activities. It's an asset map that actually Cindy's group put together in their education session. So we do a breakout group and we start to asset map things so that, folks get an idea of what, the strengths in their community of individuals, what else might be along in citizen associations and the local institutions to support the work as well. This is our roadmap of content for connectedness coaching. In the first module, and as I said, all of these modules are 2 hours in length. We talk about creating connection, getting a better understanding of loneliness, define the terms of loneliness versus isolation. We talk about what is social capital, how can that have that impact. We talk about assets and strength-based approaches, and then we also talk about social prescribing specifically. What is that movement? Have you heard of it? How might you get involved? Because our partners are starting that social prescribing journey. Cindy now has a link worker in place, so it's moving in the right direction for us. And we also want our citizens to be able to navigate resources. So we spend time teaching them how to use one another resources. We talk about active listening. We talk about peer support and appreciative inquiry. So we really come at it from a coaching model. It's about building resilience for themselves as well for others. And that self-care piece is also quite important. You can see we also talk about in our final session on transformative practices, which help people stay in the moment, be present, and help hold space. We talk about bias and encourage inclusivity. Definitely healthy relationships and boundaries are a must to discuss. And we talk about how once they leave, they can be agents of change, and we try to make a call to action for them. If they're just taking this out of interest, we don't want to lose those valuable skills that they've now developed. This is just one of the comments we've received, and this is about our toolkit, because it is definitely a huge deeper dive. There's so many resources in the toolkit that comes along with the actual training. Similar to Beth showing you some results. We have 53 ratings. We're in the middle of one now, so we'll have some more. But that's 22%. That's coming from 22% of the people who've gone through, and anyone who has completed the evaluation surveys that we ask them to do. And we evaluate after each session, so that we can customize as we go in case there's content that no longer seems relevant or needs more of a push. So you can see some of the comments there. That 101 days is the time that we got those comments coming in, because we've been doing this for a couple of years now. I did allude to the fact that it has been used in a variety of ways, the Connectedness Coaching Program, so it's open to customization. So we, of course, first used it way back in 2020 as our preliminary, and we still use it today as our preliminary volunteer training for Lonely No More. And we've also used it, as I said, for other agencies. And then we also, you'll hear more about this from Cindy herself, but we also worked in the social prescribing space with Grand Bend Community Health Center to offer it to get people interested or learn more about what social prescribing was. Then we worked with the Huron-Perth County with the Immigration Partnership, and used it as a way to engage newcomers and get them to be able to support other newcomers. So that was quite an interesting initiative. We were approached, I don't even know how they found out about us, by a cancer center in Muskoka, who were looking to do more peer supportive programming for cancer survivors or people living with cancer. And they thought our program would be able to engage community members to start that work, as well as they wanted to, do more navigation for those living with cancer and their caregivers. So we offered it to them. And then maybe our most recent foray, which was just a few months ago, we worked with, and we went province-wide with the Links to Wellbeing staff and volunteers. We offered the training to them through the Older Adult Centers Association of Ontario. So you can see that we've had a little bit of an interesting history with the Connectedness Coaching Program. So here's some feedback specifically from the OACAO folks. We got an 8.3 out of 10 in terms of, and you can see this excites me because, they're getting their feet wet in week 1, and then week 2, I'm beginning to get a hold on this. I kind of like it. And by week 4, we're pretty darn close to that 10 mark. So quite delighted to see that kind of feedback. And again, the comment, I feel that as a result of taking this course, I will be better able to connect with others and maintain healthy relationships in the future. So isn't that what we're aiming to achieve? I'm going to stop talking now and turn it over to Cindy.
Thanks, Sheila. Good afternoon, everybody. So the Grand Bend Area Community Health Center is a relatively small CHC. We have a satellite office in Hensel, and we are located in Grand Bend. We straddle 3 counties and 2 Ontario health teams. So even before COVID hit, we were looking, we had done some research. We had done the Be Well project with the Alliance. We had done research on social isolation and loneliness. And we knew that it was really important to try and connect out to our communities. So we were looking for a way, how could we bring social prescribing to the Grand Bend and Hensel area? And we had very limited resources. We don't have a very big health promotion team here, though we did have allied health members that we have since really engaged in this whole process. So we knew we needed something. I had a small group of really dedicated volunteers that I really felt would be interested in this. And we got together with Sheila and put it out to the community. So we had 15 people enroll. And out of that, some of them were our volunteers and some were just of the community, some churches, some other organizations. And what was really great about the experience is that since the training has finished, we have continued to work with these other agencies. We've got programs going on with the local church. We're getting into more and more partnerships because of the actual coming together and seeing the value of social prescribing. So we really felt it was a really great way to get some basic training into the volunteers, and we wanted to be able to offer it to the community at large. So since the project ended, we did have some people successfully graduate and are working with us, but we have managed to get some funding from the Alliance and from Public Health as to hiring a link worker, or we call a community navigator here for the centers. So she's been with us now. In fact, she's doing a presentation on asset mapping as we're talking here. She's on another one. So really pleased to have her, because she's now been able to really get the social prescribing piece into our PS suites and to really get the ball rolling. Hopefully we can continue to fund her position afterwards, but one of the important elements that we did want to do is continue to work with our volunteers so that we could at least have some help in that respect. Because as the program's going out there, we are getting more and more referrals now, which is exciting. But capacity is going to be interesting when we get done the end of our year. So it's really important to have volunteers. And I would say that our volunteers have mainly worked in the area of social type programming. So they have been reaching out to people, talking to them about exercise classes, engaging them, finding out what their interests are, helping to steer them to different programs, and even taking them by the hand and going to a program with them. I know I've talked to people in the past that, I say to them, oh, why did you join this exercise program? And they said, well, because my neighbor told me about it and she brought me and I love it. And, they were sold. Sometimes it takes that individual, someone going with them for the first little bit just to get them comfortable. So I found that my volunteers are just excellent for that. So the plan is, my dream is to have this core group of community connector volunteers, not just in my area, but in my surrounding area, so that we can get together for monthly meetings, we can support one another, we can keep each other updated as to what kinds of services and programs are out there. And we can hopefully go forward with the help of my volunteers to spread this across our entire area and to work more now with the communities. So the first thought was, okay, we're going to work with our primary care practitioners and our allied health, and we're going to get referrals going in here internally. Then we're going to bring in our volunteers. We're going to go out and really work on this project out in the community, and and work with our municipalities and our libraries and all those things. So eventually referrals come as from those organizations as well. So thanks to Sheila, that was a great way that we started, and thanks to the Alliance and Public Health for helping us get Grace into place. And yeah, we're looking forward to exciting times ahead. So.
Thanks, Cindy. I always think it's great to have someone who actually, participated in the program to deliver what it meant to them, or how it was able to support their efforts. So this is specific feedback on Cindy's session with her 15 participants. We got a 9 out of 10 in terms of how meaningful this, and that's kind of the way we phrase it. We're asking about meaningfulness. How meaningful is this to you? Does it apply? And that we like that word because it can be towards the individual. It can be towards something they're about to do. We also heard feedback from them saying that they were felt empowered to share their newfound knowledge, and that it really helped them reflect and learn from their experiences, and that the education was meaningful enough for them to tell other people about it. So yeah, I think we're on the right track here. Our next step, similar to the micro-credentialing that Beth is looking at, we've already started to pilot digital badging with our OACAO partners. We threw it out to them and said, we're kind of thinking about badging. How would you feel about that? So really badging contains verifiable data that tells folks what you did and what you learned and why it matters. So you can put it on resumes, you can just share it on social media. And there was quite a bit of interest, so we dived in. We have now developed an empowerment pathway, which will have a badge for each of the webinars they attend. If they're not able to attend all of them, they can come back and get that. And once they have all 4, there'll be an empowerment challenger. There'll be an empowerment coach if they actually go to put it to use out in community. And that will mean that they'll have to demonstrate that they did that for 8 weeks. Ideally, we'd like them to volunteer for us because we know how hard it is to find good volunteers these days, and Lonely No More relies on that for our success. And then they'll have some self-assessment to do. And then an empowerment creator, they'll need to be have an external assessment and have the other badges in place. So that's where we're headed in terms of kind of solidifying this learning. And if you're interested in learning more or hosting, we encourage you to reach out to us, and we definitely are able to customize this. Again, I just want to reiterate that it, has really demonstrated good success, and as a precursor to launching a social prescription initiative in community, it kind of sets the groundwork. I don't think we'll have time for that today because I definitely want to go for questions. So why don't we just open the floor up to that? So are there any questions from our folks here? Either I'm looking at the chat box, I'm not seeing too much.
I'll ask a quick question. Hi.
Hi.
Thanks. My name's Maria. And this might have been mentioned, or maybe there's a reaching out we can do, but I was thinking around, we work on a social prescribing program and have connectors and link workers over in New Brunswick. And just curious about sort of if you've collaborated in that sense sort of over with us, like if those modules are available or how to connect about trying them out, or same with like that coaching model. I know I do a lot of that from an OT perspective, so it'd be fun to just collaborate or chat a bit further. And
Maria, please reach out to me. I would crawl through the screen and hug you because I'm coming to you from Cape Breton right now. That's where I reside.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, I still work with this project in Ontario, and we've been, we've worked with Community Links and looked at other ways to try to bring connectedness coaching into Nova Scotia. I haven't had an inroad into New Brunswick, but we'd be glad to. We're virtual. We can go wherever you need us. So please reach out.
Exactly.
Oh, and we can also customize the content to the environment that, to the roles that you're trying to build, right?
Absolutely. The Valley's been huge. Like my role is more supporting sort of coaching the team so that they can have some skills and capacity when they're working with individuals. So yeah, it definitely has been valuable. Yeah,
please. I've got your name emblazoned in my brain, but please reach out to me for networking, and we'll talk. And there's a great, great question in the chat box, and that's to Cindy.
Actually, we have been able to work with the Pinery Provincial Park. So we have a group that meets every Wednesday, and they do a different trail in the Pinery Park. And what we did with that was we bought some passes to start the process out and had some donated so that people could carpool into the park so that there would be no charge. So we worked out with the Lambton Heritage Museum, which is right across from the Pinery Park, that we could use their parking lot to park vehicles, do our warm up in the parking lot, and then bring everybody into the park. And so that program runs year round, and it's amazing. And then the other bonus of it is I got talking to the museum. We have no indoor walking space in Grand Bend. Like there's nothing. It's a small community. We don't have a community hall that we can access for something like indoor walking, and we need safe spaces. So I asked the museum if they would consider allowing us to walk the galleries before they open to the general public, and they agreed. So we have a winter walking program that uses the galleries in the Lambton Heritage Museum so that we can provide safe walking, and we do that in January through until the spring. So that's just some of it. We have community gardens because, of course, we have area. The municipality's been great to give us space for community gardens. We have them in Port Franks and Grand Bend and outward. So we have been able to utilize. Oh, and they'll even give us free space on top of the beach house for yoga classes if we want. So we can go down and do yoga on the beach. So yeah, it's a great place to run programs for sure.
Other questions or comments? I believe we end shortly. I think that's part 2, and I think that might be open to the whole group. Is there any evaluation tools looking at green benefits in terms of environmental impact that is happening in these activities you mentioned?
Well, not that I'm doing at this point, but certainly something to consider. I don't know. Any thoughts? Sheila, have you come across anything like that?
I have not. I've kind of back-ended that. I'm just thinking about that. I've kind of back-ended it because I'm a big advocate for forest bathing. So I know the research on the other end, but no, I haven't gone, okay, now that we're doing it or doing more nature work, how are we evaluating it? So yeah, definitely food for thought. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any appetite to having the training materials available in French? I'm not sure if you're asking Beth or myself. Beth, I'll let you answer that one first.
It's a great question. I'm sure if there was a demand for it, I think we could probably look at getting things translated. We do have a small Francophone population here in Alberta, but they haven't necessarily been engaged in some of our social prescribing work just yet.
And if that was coming to us, for us, we are just a small part of a bigger organization. So for us, it's all about finding funding or grant opportunities to do any of these initiatives. So we'd need to have a partner who wanted us to, to look for funding to make that happen, to do the translation.
I did get a few questions in the chat just through the direct message. I just wanted to clarify for people, we're really happy to have people from other provinces take the training if they're interested in it. But right now we've hesitated to kind of promote it as something that people should do in other provinces. I would hate for like a bunch of link workers or connectors in Ontario to take this training when it's actually different from what their role is in Ontario, because there's slight differences in everything. And so when we're talking about kind of coordinating at more of that national level, making sure that we're having those conversations with like program implementers in those different spaces to make sure that this training is actually applicable to the approach that they're using in their social prescribing work. So I'm happy for people to kind of like poke around and take a look, but I don't want people to take it as like a gold standard for this is what's social prescribing link workers need to know across the entire country, because I don't know that that's the case right now. think we can probably wrap things up. Sheila and Cindy, we're right at
Okay.
12:45.
Yep, that gives people 5 minutes to get to have a body break and get to the next session. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, everyone.